What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Subconscious Elements podcast, a podcast where we break down all things spiritual, whether it's relationships, movies, books, stories, myths, legend, anything that could be related to the inner self, the subconscious mind. And we find that talking about these things helps our relationships, helps ourselves, helps our friends, helps our families. And that's why we do this. And today we're going to do a movie breakdown. We're going to go over Inside Out 2. It just came out like a month or two ago. It broke some records for like the most watched animated movie on opening weekend. I saw two different things. One that it was number one that it was number two. So I'm not sure what the actual stat is, but it had a crazy weekend. And I think we watched it on Monday, and we definitely liked it. They killed it on this one. But I'll go ahead and let Tori break it down.
All right, so Inside Out 2 is the sequel to the first one. And if you haven't seen the first one, I'd highly recommend it because it definitely ties into that same storyline. And whether or not you're a fan of the Disney Pixar animated films, their style of storytelling, or just interested in psychological aspects in the mind during adolescence into growing up, I think this is a great movie to check out. This movie starts out with the protagonist, Riley, the main character. She is 13 and she is heading into high school. So this kind of starts out super relaxed, excited, all this enthusiasm, all the emotions in her mind are working seamlessly on the control panel in conjunction with her hockey league, and she gets an opportunity to join the next team with the high schoolers, and so this kind of portrays her internal and external struggles and shows all the new emotions that can come with getting older, and just her journey through puberty, essentially.
Yeah, so the beginning of the movie starts with her and her friends from middle school go to hockey camp. And she finds out on the way there that her two friends are going to a different middle school. So you can see it as like they're in a bigger city, and depending on where you live, decides to what school you go to, like based on bus routes and things like that, or whatever district you fall under. And so she finds out that based on where the split happened, her two friends are going to a different middle school. And so they've been talking about it, and they're both kind of like have this connection on it. And so now she feels like she's the odd person out. And they start camp with that happening. So already she's like in this anxious state because she feels like she's losing her friends. And then they go to hockey camp, which is a thing of itself, right? They're not with their parents anymore. They're staying in an all-girls hockey facility, and they're sleeping there, and they're essentially trying to prove to a coach that they have what it takes so that they can make the varsity team. And so a lot of these things add up, and one of the main, what would you call it, antagonists, or the portrayed antagonist, is anxiety, which is one of the new emotions. So like there's a whole journey of what's her name again? Riley. She's incorporating the new emotions in with her previous emotions, and she's experiencing that while attending this hockey camp. And anxiety ends up taking the control panel and essentially like wreaks havoc. And I feel like we all have experienced that. Like this one's interesting in telling it through the story of a teenager, but I feel like we're going through that as like adults, anxiety, like if you let anxiety take control of the board, that's where you start doing all the messed up things, whether it's like talking bad about people or doing whatever it takes to get ahead kind of mentality. Like you have this thing in your mind and you got to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And we've all seen that in various aspects.
Yeah, so when they introduce anxiety and the other emotions that accompany her, which are embarrassment and envy and ennui, all very funny, interesting characters in themselves, but anxiety is really the main focus here. When they first introduce her, anxiety is shown to have good intentions. And she is also trying to do what's best for Riley and in navigating her external reality. And so it starts off where she's making decisions and she's kind of taking the lead, and it's not necessarily bad things. It's just different and different than the other emotions are used to seeing as well. And she kind of takes Joy's place in that way. And it becomes where anxiety gets a little bit diluted and she gets like overwhelmed and in too much control, and to where she kicks out the other emotions and they go on this journey of finding their way back to the headquarters. And so anxiety is a natural and necessary response to unfamiliar situations. It can also help us in stressful and dangerous situations as well. So it is seated in good nature, but whenever we allow this to become the main focus in our life, it can definitely tear down our well-being and cause challenges in our life. So learning how to balance and regulate the emotions that we go through and kind of understand why they're there and how they can be used to your benefit, rather than allowing them to run rampant and choose all the decisions for you.
Right. And anxiety has this moment where at the end, where she's like, I was just trying to protect Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we need that, because oftentimes the thing that happens, or the bad thing that happens to us, is because we didn't have the foresight to see that that was a possibility. A lot of times, if you have the foresight to know that that bad thing can possibly happen, you can prepare for it, and therefore to generally avoid the suffering that would come with it. For example, like camping. If you've been camping before, you'll know all the things that you might need so that you don't get stuck up a river without a paddle. Whereas like little things like, you think you'd be able to start a fire really easy until you're out there and none of the wood is lighting like as easy as it should be. And you're like, dang, I wish I would have brought some lighter fluid to get this thing going. Or bug spray. Or, I mean, we've been camping so many times. It's like all it takes is for you to miss that one little thing where you're just like, well, dang, this is kind of a bummer because we forgot the tiny little thing, and then you plan it for next time. But you being able to plan for all these, like, it feels great when you go out somewhere and it's like you had everything you needed. You're like perfectly set up and you're just like, oh yeah, you got the fire going. Like you feel like a pro. And so just that, being able to use this idea of predicting the future helps us. And it's like characterized as anxiety. And it's like today, I think I was thinking about it, and it's like, be careful driving here. You know how people like to swerve on this one. And it's like, that's what anxiety is. Makes me anxious because I know it's like people generally tend to drive crazy on this one. So get over it. Or it's like, it's raining. Everyone's going to be driving slow. Don't be changing music on your phone. Right? So, and I find that if you can imagine the bad things before they happen, they have a less likely chance of that happening. Right? It's like being mindful. And that works in jiu-jitsu and martial arts as well. Just having knowledge that the counter is there almost prevents the counter. You still need a counter to it, but just by knowing that that's an option they can go to, you can completely even avoid it.
Yeah, you mentioned physical symptoms as well as the mental symptoms. That's very important to note as well, so we can become aware of these things. It can include elevated heart rate, like sweating, shortness of breath, and this is all to put you in that fight or flight state, so you're aware of the repercussions and the consequence. And it's not necessarily something that might happen, but just to be aware that this is a possibility. And that's set for our own safety and for us to be able to evolve.
Well, the fight or flight thing is like, that's what a lot of people are saying that we're struggling with as a society, is that we're constantly in a fight or flight state because we're consistently anxious. We're anxious because we have a lot going on. We live in big cities. dangerous, bills, life, job, work, relations. It's like we got all the things, and you're notified about it immediately with a phone. So, it's like, here's this state that's meant to help you, but you can see how it could drive you crazy if you're in it for way too long. You have to like step out of that, right? It's like, it can always be annoying when you're over planning for stuff. It's like, oh Christ, they're gonna be fine, like that kind of thing. It's like, dude, what does it matter? Like, we try our best, but at the same time, you don't want to over plan. Sometimes we be over planning, and we got an entire SUV packed to the brim for like 2 nights. It's like, how do we need all this stuff for 2 nights? It's like, then goes back to that idea, is like, where we're like planning for every tiny little thing. We have every little thing for it. And then it's like, are we even camping at this point? We're bringing the whole damn house with us. But, again, that balance, right? That's what the whole movie is about, is balancing these states. Cracks me up.
Yeah, so another interesting character in the new emotions was the ennui. I thought that was very relatable for me specifically.
I thought it was ennui.
Ennui. Well, even Joy in the movie, she mispronounces it and she goes, nicknames, I'm going to call you Wee Wee. And he was like, no. But it's basically, in the movie, the character defines themselves as boredom. And so I related it to myself in a specific sense, where you're so young, you haven't really developed the communication skills, and situations can become so overwhelming that you're just like, you choose not to respond, or you don't really know how to respond. So the response is that you're not responding. And yeah, I remember this when I was actually like 13, 14. And I was a family was trying to communicate to me, and I was just like, how's the weather? And I'm just like, you're talking to me? Like, I don't know. What is the weather doing? And you have like this whole internal dialogue. And it's like, think weather things. Like, what's a good thing to say about the weather right now? And I'm like, I'm so anxious in my own mind that I can't even come out with a proper response, because it's just like, red alert, red alert.
The idea of like, act natural, and there's
Yeah.
like humans get down eating grass.
Me acting natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It's like always some joke where it's like, if you try to act natural, you're just not able to.
so awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll teach a 16-year-old regularly. He gives me this type of vibe all the time. Actually, both of them do, just in different ways. But yeah, I think it's a mixture of a bunch of different things, right? Like, they don't have the communication skills. They don't even, like, they're not really even processing things in a way of like being able to tell a story about it later. That's like a skill you develop in your later years. Like, now it's kind of annoying now. Almost everything I experience is like being translated into words so that I could tell someone about it. And that is another way that you get pulled from the present moment. And kids are less likely to be doing that. So then when you ask them about things, they're like, I have no words. They just stare at you like, oh, yeah, it's cool. Like, you ask kids about their day, nothing ever happens to a kid ever. They're just like, it's all right. But I remember there's like always stuff happening at school. But anyway, it's that thing of like, they don't have the skill to even formulate the words. And then there's like, it's like a reaction to what you're saying, where it's like too much stimulus and it's overwhelming. So then it's like, they'd rather just like build a wall instead of dealing with it. So instead of like no response, they're just like, yeah, I don't know.
Please don't talk to me.
Yeah. I don't
Leave me alone.
Yeah, I don't want to be in the spotlight and having to say words. So I'm going to give you the quickest response that would allow me to go back to staring at the wall.
It's like when you're hiking in the dark and you're walking with a flashlight and you see a possum, and the possum's like, that's how I feel. I'm like, they see me.
Yeah,
don't mind me, just a little possum out here.
Yeah, so anyways, like, anytime you try to, even if you compliment the kid, he'll be like, what? I don't even like that. Gosh. And it's just like, what, dude? You're literally wearing it on your shirt. You know, you try to be nice and be like, hey, nice shirt you got there. And he goes, this thing, I don't even like this shirt. I just wore it because it was the only one that was in my freaking closet, and walks away. I'm like,
all right. So this is awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh, go ahead.
One of the specific scenes in the movie was when she was part of the older kid crew. Now she was the youngest one, and she was on the varsity team talking with the varsity players, and she was invited to a hangout late at night, and they were like, what's your favorite band, or what kind of music do you listen to? And she's like, she told the honest answer, but like prior to that she's like, like, what do I answer? Like, I don't know. What do they think is cool? It's like, well, what do I think is cool? And then they like ask her to answer again. And so she gives an honest answer, and they were like, yeah, for middle schoolers, like, no, be for real. Like, what do you actually listen to? And she's like, so anxiety goes to like core memories, and she's like trying to pull through like all music related like memories, and she's like, music stuff. And it shows that Trident commercial again. It's like, I forget that ring, the jingle, but it's like, yeah, this pulls all this useless information because she had never experienced what these kids thought would be considered cool in their music repertoire. And so she has nothing to pull from.
And her answers are so bad that they actually think she's being sarcastic, and then she starts just running with it.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, I think that's cool.
And then her friends actually walk by, and they're like, what do you mean? We went to their concert. You definitely enjoyed them. And she's like, oh yeah, I enjoyed them, all right. Like trying to like make fun of it, and it's like not true, but she's just trying to fit in type of thing. That's definitely how ennui can take control of our situation.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it also shows the dynamic of how you kind of change based on the people that you're around. And it's just because that you have different relationships with different people. I remember one person was asking me something like, you know, oh, why do you have this type of friend? And it's like not like you can relate to that kind of person. And I'm like, no, we relate to about these types of things. And then this person I relate to about these types of things. And then this person, we talk about these types of things. And it's like, yeah, you three can't be friends because y'all don't relate on these things, but y'all just so happen to relate these different aspects of me. And it's like, so you can't take it personal. And then when there is that group, like, so for whatever reason, like, you know, like, so jujitsu, you can have like little cliques within a bigger clique. And it can just be a little weird sometimes when there's multiple people from like different groups, and it's like, at least jujitsu, there's always something to be related on. But now imagine like the only thing that you have related is just like school. You know, it's like jujitsu, everyone's there because they love it. But then if you don't know these people for something that you love, then it just kind of becomes that weird thing. And that's like something that we all have to come to accept. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but one of the big things that we notice in the military is like, so I have friends that I deployed with, and then there's like friends I deploy with, and then there's my roommate. And I was like, that's just like another level. It's like, yeah, when you're sleeping together in the same room, and you're talking about everything that fucking happens to you, you know, it's like you just develop another level of friendship. And so, yeah, and then there's people that were deployed with us, but they were on a different unit. And there's people that we had classes with. So you just get these different bonds from like different points in your life.
Yeah, and I have friends that we don't agree on all topics. Like, I just asked my friend, hey, what kind of music do you listen to? And he's like, heavy metal. And I was like, oh, hell no. And I was like, I still like you though, but I definitely don't like heavy metal. No offense to you. And he thought I was joking. He's like, what do you mean you don't like heavy metal? And I'm like, no, I actually don't like it. Like, that's the one music genre I'm not vibing with, my man. He's like, all right. He's like, I get it. We're still friends. It's like, we don't have to agree on everything. It's like, I appreciate that you like it because it exists. So someone has to like it. But it's not my vibe, but it's fine. And it's like, we're friends because of other reasons, you know? Yeah. So everyone has their own interests, and you shouldn't try to mold your interests to fit the perception of others. So you should have your own interests true to yourself. It's like, if we all loved heavy metal, then there wouldn't be any other genres of music. So the fact that I enjoy other genres, it's actually good and helps the variety of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, like one of my good friends who Bob Voss, older fella, and he used to be my boss. I started working for him because he did jujitsu, and then he became a really good friend through working for him. But it was always like a weird relationship because I'm like, I think at the time I was like in my late 20s, 28, 29. He's 50 something, and it was just like he would tell me that he doesn't have any friends his age he can talk to jujitsu or MMA or anything about that. It's like to them it's all weird, but to me it's like everyday life. So we're like always talking. He's talking about the old school days, shoot to box, dog fight, like this old school MMA organization. And we could just like relate on that type of stuff. And then it's like I'll have friends that I work with and I can't talk to them about jujitsu.
mm-hmm.
It's like you don't want to be the guy that only brings up jujitsu, so you just don't even bring it up. So then you have to have like these different groups of people that allow you to talk about these things. Like I can't talk to you about music really, so it's like you have to find other people to like link up so that you can like express that aspect of yourself. Because you start talking to me about notes and shit, I'm like, I start daydreaming. I start like, well, okay, yeah.
Makes
anyway,
sense.
Jiu-jitsu.
Yes. Yeah, back when I was super interested in music, I only wanted to have friends that were interested in music. Like I was only interested in people that were interested in music.
So I wouldn't have been cool enough.
Nope, I would not have been interested in you, Scott.
Well, you have evolved, I guess.
I guess. Now I ask people. Well, I feel like I could tell if someone was a musician in the past. So I ask them, and I'm like,
if they wore a fedora, it's pretty obvious. If you ain't wearing a fedora or that other stupid type of hat, what's the one with the little
bucket hat?
No, it's like a flat. Look, it's got a bill. So the fedora is like a weird.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, and then there's like a flat one that the white guys wear. A lot of times bald white guys, but it's like a bill, and instead of like a cup, it's like flat mush. It kind of sits on top of it.
I think you're talking about the bucket hat. You're not talking about bucket hats?
What's a bucket hat?
Bucket hats are like soft, and then they have like a soft bill around it.
Oh, yeah, maybe it is a bucket hat.
Yeah. Yeah, bucket hats. A lot of like stoners wear those type of things.
Oh, yeah.
And rave people.
Rave people?
Yeah. They're popular like Coachella and stuff like that.
Coachella?
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking about this. This is the kind of thing that people have at like speakeasies. It's a duckbill cap.
Okay.
A fedora is not that bucket hat.
Okay.
It looks similar though, but it's hard. That one, the bucket hat is soft. The fedora is like a hard hat. It's like a cowboy hat, like a cowboy top, and then it's got like a short bill.
So now people should have anxiety about the hat choice that they picked because it will define if.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I'm just kidding.
No, I definitely judge people based on their hats.
Well, it tells a lot about a person. If you're wearing a hat with a melted smiley face, I know you're about that life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Melted drippy smiley.
Yeah. I mean, what you wear says a lot about you, I guess, so.
Yeah, it's your external representation of your internal world. So the way that you hold yourself can affect the way you perceive yourself and the way others perceive yourself.
Yeah, but doesn't that look like something like people like that would be at like speakeasies doing poetry would wear? That's like a poetry
like a
hat.
jazz player hat.
Like an artiste.
The creative thinkers. Yeah.
Like the artists usually wear something like that, but backwards. Anyway, and On Way was like that, right? He kind of gave off that vibe. He was very like Frenchy.
Yeah, it was a French voice.
Yeah.
French person that did the voice. So.
Ennui.
And they're multilingual in that. Yeah, and then they have the embarrassment character, which is pretty funny. He ends up helping Sadness. So he's like a Care Bear type of thing. It's like the big guy. And then they have Envy, which is similar to Disgust, I feel like. But she didn't really play a big role. I don't really think there was any real big key moments. Yeah.
Well, she was the one that was kind of pushing along with anxiety. Like she was encouraging anxiety the whole time.
Like her secondhand man type of thing. Yeah, but one of the best scenes in the movie for me was whenever they went down to the core belief system. And that was kind of like shown as under the headquarters. And it was almost like the scene from Avatar when they're connecting to the tree of life. And Awe, I think that's what it's called. And so there's all these strands, and like Joy runs her fingers across it, and it's like all the things that she was positively reinforced with in her life. And it's also voiced in different stages of her life. So it's like the structure in which she has developed her character. So it was like, I'm great at this. I am loved, and like all these things. So.
Her sense of self. And
yeah,
it was like,
sense of self.
It was like a beautiful structure too. So like all the strands from this lower level, which were memories and like this water area, all created these like memory strands that all came up and culminated at the top and then created like this beautiful like heart flower structure. And yeah, anytime they touched it, it would like say one of these voices that reaffirmed something that she believed about herself. And then as anxiety took over, in order to make Riley listen to the commands better, she would plant some of the anxiety ones, whether it was like, oh, I want to impress Val, all I got to do is this, and it would make a memory, and then she would take that and go put it down there. And instead of like this original strand would be like this white, smooth, straight line, and when it culminated, it was like a curved
mosaic.
Structure. The anxiety strain was more of like a lightning bolt, and it was jagged.
It's like wiry and abstract, and whenever it formed into its own structure, it was like all chaos basically, and it just looked like it's basically how when anxiety takes over, it can be unhealthy. It's like represents what that would kind of look like inside of the mind. But yeah.
And so it corrupts her sense of self. And then there's like a huge moment where they're able to like fix it and bring it all back together. Like Joy takes over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're kicked out of headquarters, and then they eventually find their way back to headquarters and then are able to take back control. And then not only take back control, but also integrate all of the emotions into a cohesive.
Yeah, so we brought up how one of the first things that like starts the anxiety was not going to be able to be with her friends going into the high school. And then right after that, she wants to impress Val, who's the varsity superstar, like the team captain, like break all the records kind of person. And she wants to impress her and wants to be like her. And so she's constantly going back and forth between anxiety and envy. And then it kind of culminates. So like as her sense of self starts to get replaced with a lot of these anxious fears, she starts to get pushed into possibly stealing the coach's journal, which she does, right? She actually ends up doing it. But when the idea is like first comes to her, she's like not going to do it or not even interested in it. And it's like that because the strand is like, I'm a good person. But then the more of the anxious memories that she plants in there and the anxiety structure gets bigger, she's way more inclined to try to do it. And then eventually, and that's what like anxiety does, right? She's like, oh, I know how to fix this, and gets like more of those memories and then goes and like plants them down there. So she's like pretty much seeding these fears. And so she ends up getting Riley to steal the journal, which she then reads that she's not ready by the coach. One of the notes from the coach says she's not ready. And she takes that to another level, right? And so it keeps like culminating to this pressure on the final game. And in the final game, she's not being herself. She starts to be mean to her own teammates, mean to her friends, kind of dismissive of her old friends, and then playing rough, kind of playing dirty a little bit. And it culminates into pretty much an anxiety attack.
Yeah, so she basically becomes absorbed by anxiety, and it becomes destructive to her external world, where she's like actually injured one of her teammates, and she's trying to beat the record that the top player had set in place, where the first game that she ever played was 2 scores, and so she was trying to get that 3rd score, but she sacrificed to get the 3rd point by sacrificing her team. And
she like stole one of the scores from her team.
Yeah, so her teammate was going to make the score and she like forcibly took that point because she wanted to make it. And so she had achieved her goal, but not in the way that was a good player, like a
Right.
teammate. So
Right.
it like sacrificed her image in the team.
And it's actually a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's one thing to be a ball hog, but then to go take the ball from someone or something like that, that's like,
Yeah, worse.
yeah.
It's like,
Doesn't
no
even
one
matter
wants
you
that
scored.
person on the team.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, good job, jerk.
Right. Yeah, for real. And it's like that same thing in jiu-jitsu that we experience, that it's like when you're winning because you're trying to win every single round, you want to go home and say that no one beats you in the gym, like then no one just wants to roll with you. And then you're the one.
Friends.
Yeah, then you're the one playing sad boy on the edge of the mat. Oh, no one wants to roll with me. And it's like, yeah, dude, because you try to win every round. It's like, oh, I'm just trying to get better.
And injure people and...
Yeah, well, it's like regardless of the injuries, it's like that's obvious. But it's like, if you try to win every time, no one's going to want to lose every time. Like, no one wants to lose every single time. You got to let people work. And so, yeah, it's like that same mentality of like getting caught up in some achievement that you risk what it is that you're doing in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with teammates, it's like understanding that not everyone is on the same place, not in the same place. And like in order to have a better team, you must build each character. And so like understanding where you're at, and if you're at a place where you can help other teammates, then that's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be tearing them down and trying to outperform and kind of like shadow them even further away from the goal of being a great team altogether.
Yeah, so then after, when she has the anxiety attack, this is essentially when anxiety is like losing control and is like is like shown going like so fast of like trying to control everything that she's like unable to stop. So she's like seen as like this crazy vortex that won't stop spinning. And Joey's trying to regain control and like reattach the sense of, because she like tossed out the structure it was. So then she's just trying to place it back to like reignite all the core memories that are in there, because they're not gone, they're just like not activated. So in this moment, Joy pulls through, switches the structure, I think, and then calms anxiety down. And this is then shown like the outside where Riley is able to take some deep breaths and start to relax and realize it's going to be okay.
She's like processing her emotions.
Right.
And yeah, the anxiety is like in a frozen state of panic and that's going on mentally while she's physically experiencing like crying and breathing heavy and her heart rate's crazy. And so it's just like this state of like overwhelmment.
Right. And she's finally able to work through it. And it kind of she then experiences pure joy, which is happiness and appreciating the moment where you're doing something not for some outside result, but you're doing it for the sake of whatever it is you're doing. So it's like we start jiu-jitsu because it's fun and we love to do it, but then you attach this idea that you have to win something, and then it's no longer fun because it's then very, very serious. Or you're not laughing when you're worried about getting your ass beat, you know? And so when you're constantly having to prepare for those things, because once you win one or lose one, it's on to the next one. Because as a competitor, when you see everyone posting on Instagram, you're like, why didn't I compete today? I could have competed today. What am I doing? And it's like, oh, I was at open mat, but I'm not at this competition that everyone was at. It's like, oh, I got to be on the next competition. And then you're searching, and then you're the competition guy. Then every time someone sees you, they're like, oh, what competition? So what competition are you doing next? What you got next? And then so now you're always got something coming up next. And when that happens, again, all your training sessions that at one point was like fun that you couldn't wait to go to, now is like a daily thing that you have.
It's like a doom and gloom.
Exactly.
And you put too much pressure.
Steal the fun and enthusiasm, which steals your creativity, which makes you stagnant, which makes you hate it even more. So it's like all these things that you have to navigate and be aware of, that because if you love something, you're going to run into that, you know, like I'm sure you might have experienced that in music where it becomes a grind, you know, it's like you're grinding because you want to achieve something, but it's like always this play of like taking it serious and and it's not that serious.
Yeah, I would practice so often that my band director was like, you actually need to stop practicing so much. Like, you need to take a break. Because, like, I would play so much that I had, like, calluses on my hands. Like, my hands started getting, like, almost like the premature symptoms of, like, carpal tunnel. Like, my hands were, like, locking up because they were exhausted from moving so much. Because when you play clarinet, you literally use every single finger. And, like, my jaw was sore. Like, my lips were getting, like, beaten from... And it's like, I just wanted to be, like, the best. And then it's like, I became one of the best in the state. And then that wasn't enough. So I wanted to learn other instruments and become the best at those. And so I was learning other instruments, and then I was learning how to read, like, all pieces of music and, like, all. So it's like, I didn't only want to know treble clef. I wanted to know bass clef. And then I wanted to learn percussion. I want to learn all this shit. So it's like, there's an infinite game. And so it's like, you think that you're the best, and it's like, well, I could be the best at multiple things. Like, and so it's like, you finally think that you reach this point, and then you're literally at the bottom of an infinity.
Yeah. It cracks me up. It's like, you're telling me about using every finger to play clarinet, but is that why Squidward can't play? Because he only has two tentacles?
I guess. He doesn't even have fingers. He just go like this.
So it's like his whole thing is that no matter how hard he tries, he sucks at clarinet. And then as you're telling me you have to do this to play it well, it's like he's literally like,
Well, also, I feel like clarinet, in the beginning, clarinet is very difficult to learn in comparison to other instruments, because other instruments, like a trumpet, has only 3 buttons, and it's mostly like tonal throat. And trombone, there's no buttons, it's just slides. So it's like, in a way, it can be seen as more difficult, because you not only have to develop a proper embouchure, like mouth, but you also have to develop like proper finger positioning as well. So it can be pretty difficult.
Yeah. Sounds lame. I'm more of a percussionist. Give me some drums. That'd
beat you with the drumstick.
Give me something to slap, man. Give me the big old bongo drum. No, I'd have the triangle.
Yeah, he's on triangle.
Yeah, I'm not coordinated enough to be doing all this. I'd just be fucking.
Or you can get the bass drum. The bass drum. Cymbals.
Well, the cymbal is only like one, right? It's just like.
Yeah, usually the cymbalist is not a whole position. It's a position that someone in percussion plays in addition to another instrument. So, because they're not used very often in the piece of music.
Schools probably have the
yeah, if there's a specific song that requires a lot of cymbals, then yeah. But typically it's like a piece of a drum set or something like that. That's why they'll do it.
And isn't it like in band, like traditional band, like the best person doesn't even play an instrument, they hold the fucking stick?
Yes, because they've become a master. So they can see beyond just one strand of the ensemble. They can see multiple, and they can expand like their views and their understanding.
I know what you're saying. You're talking about this person, right?
Yeah, the conductor.
But I'm talking about, what about the person that's like this?
That's usually the director is the conductor, or their lead person, which like their assistant director.
Yeah. Well, so there's like, I guess there's like a regular band that's like in a stationary spot.
Yeah, orchestra. So usually you start with regular band, and then there's marching band. And then marching band is when the director promotes one of the musicians in the band as the drum major, is what they call it. I don't really know.
Is that the one with the staff?
They can use sticks or batons, or they can just use their hands. Like, I was the drum major, and I just used my hands.
And you walk with them?
You stand on a very tall podium where everyone can see you.
But who's the person that walks with? Isn't there someone? There's like a uniform thing, and then there's one person in the front, and they're just holding a stick, and they're just like walking with it.
I guess possibly in really big drum, like big bands, then yes. But we did have that specifically in one of the pieces of our movements, because the bass was so different from the treble that we needed a separate conductor just to keep those players in the correct playing the correct way as opposed to the other people. So it was too much for one person to.
Well, the person with the staff though is moving with the band, so I don't think that they're really doing anything except like.
Like I said, maybe in bigger drums, like bigger bands, where they need to have multiple people. I know for sure there's different drum majors like in different areas of the fields because it's just too big of a band and there's too much surface area. So it's like they can't all look in this one way because they're too far away. So that's definitely a thing. But as far as someone marching with them, I don't personally have experience with that, but I'm assuming it's probably a thing. I think that's more for like practice. Maybe. It's like they're walking them through exactly what and where they need to be.
But yeah, anyways, that I'm gonna look this up, but just those moments of pure joy. And that's when you can only experience that if you're present. Right? If you're like thinking about some future thing, you're not gonna be able to tap into it. But if you're just doing it because you love doing it, you'll be able to experience that high level of emotion.
Yeah, it's like the difference between the practice and the performance. It's like during the practice, you can take it to a different level of intensity and like focus. And then during the actual performance, it should be like automatic almost. And it's just like fun at that point. That's where the fun is had. Yeah, I literally was like, at one of the performances we had with the band, I was literally crying as I was like directing the band because it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I get it. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, so yeah, no, you're right. It is a drum major, so there's just different versions of them. So I guess like different bands have their different ways. So I guess like I guess the person I did see, now that I think about it, they did like march with them, and then I guess they'd come out and then stand on the side.
Yeah, so when they're coming onto the field, we are walking with them, usually, sometimes. Or you can walk on separately, and then, yeah, so it just depends. Like, you can walk out with the band and you're in the front, and then you go up to the podium, or you can start separate and just walk up to the podium. I think what I did mostly was walk out with them in the front, and then you climb up the podium, and then you're there. And then when the judges and when the people in charge, they are referring to the band, you are the one to answer. So they're like, Tori Sutliff of this band, is your band ready? And then you'll give them like a salute, and then you start, and then you basically keep everything going the correct way. And you're able to notice small things and like the connections that you have with specific people. So each part of the band has its own little smaller version of a leader. And so you're able to like make eye contact and connect with that person and like give them nonverbal cues to like adjust in the middle of the show. Like if you notice something and then they're aware also, you can like guide them because you've been with them during all the practices. So you're both aware of things that can be seen as an issue. So you can kind of keep them on track. And so you're aware of like every different section of the band and their own individual struggles. And then you can like guide them all.
That's cool. I dig it. Reminds me of the military. I was like thinking that you could be a cool band person in the military. Yeah, we always make fun of the band people because they get promoted really fast because they want to look like the best. So they make you like an automatic like staff sergeant or something. Like you only be in the band for like 4 years and then you're like one of the highest ranks. And it's because they want all of them to have like, to be like super power. It's like, oh, this full of staff sergeants, but they didn't do anything except play band. And so it would be like a joke being like, and then like, yeah, this guy's a fucking band director over here. Like it's like a joke, be like, hey, this guy's getting promoted a little too fast, you know, like, or like it's like a joke that you didn't do anything. It's like, yeah, this guy was a fucking band. And it's like, oh, no, it wasn't. And I was like, yeah, you might as well have been.
Yeah, it's like people ask me like, oh, what sport did you play in high school? And I was like, oh, I was in the band. And almost always they're like, oh, if they're not interested in music, they're just like, yeah, whatever. Like you didn't play a sport, like
nerd.
It actually is very difficult to, one, master an instrument, two, memorize music because you don't have any type of visual.
That sounds something like, that's exactly something that a band person would say. Okay, Tori?
You don't have any music in front of you, so you actually have to memorize sometimes like 20, 30 minutes worth of music. And you're playing and moving at the same time. Also, sometimes doing choreographed dancing.
Oh yeah, the marching band. Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be tough. I don't want to be marching around in a fucking thick ass suit carrying an instrument. And
You have to memorize like exact points where you land. You have to memorize actual playing, and it's like physically taxing. Like you have to be all in the same, moving as a unit. So it's not easy, definitely not easy. And you're usually practicing during the summer when school is out. So it's like your whole summer is dedicated to
this one
band.
time at band camp.
And it's like during the hottest summer months. So you're literally sweating.
That's why it's a joke. It's like, because that's probably all the band people talk about.
Yeah, you become very close to your bandmates.
At band camp? Like, if you say that around a group of guys, we all just start mocking it.
Yeah, I know.
And be like, you're not about to say it. It's like, no,
even dude, the band people mock it too.
It's like, no, I really did go to band camp. Like, dude, don't even tell us the fucking story, dude.
Nah, it's hilarious. Like, you'll be marching on the field and someone will lose a shoe and you're like, how did this happen? Like, it's just the weirdest thing will happen. Yeah. Like, what the? We literally all had to march over this one guy's shoe one time, and he did like the whole show with one shoe on. I'm like, bro,
that's like some military shit right there. No, we had this. So like the military is all about like uniformity, and in order to get men to be on the same page, the military uses shame as like a way to self-correct. It's like, how else do you get someone that you work with to do what they're supposed to do? You can't do anything. You just pray that that person does what they're supposed to do. In the military, you shit on them. You literally make their life hell by ridiculing them until they act right. So if there's anything you can be made fun of for, is like people will do it. And it's like when uniformity is a big deal. So imagine just having one thing out of uniform is like immediate attention. And we had this one kid, it's like in training school. And so like a lot of us are still kind of stupid, right? But we're still figuring life out. And there's this one kid, and there's always a joke in the Marine Corps that like some of these guys are actually special because we have like the lowest entry score. I'm pretty sure the Army does, but the Marine Corps is pretty low too. So you get some guys that got the lowest score, but somehow they're still there, and you know we all got to take care of them, kind of. Yeah, this one kid, he came. I remember his last name started with a K. Can't remember it though. But he showed up with one ankle sock and one tube sock, and he came, and it's like, and he was late. So it would be different if you showed up early and snuck in somewhere. No one probably would have known, and then pushed it down. You know, you might have gotten away with it. But he showed up late, and one was pulled all the way up, and the other one just didn't even exist. He couldn't see it. And so he comes out, and everyone's like, "Oh, where's he at? God!" And finally, he's like running out all, and he's like, "Marine, what happened to your socks?" This is what he does. What they all do too. He just cracks me. He's like, and it's like, you don't know what socks you're wearing. He's like freaking out again. You know, he probably literally just woke up. And I blame that kid's roommates. Like, you know, maybe I guess he could have been a different squad, but I'm gonna tell you, there's like 1,000 Marines outside. So it's like, how did this kid sleep in? Like, did someone not wake him up on the way out? Like, hey, get your ass up, buddy. We fucking gotta go. Anyway, so yeah, those guys exist, and you know they get ridiculed for like those times, and it all happens so small. I mean, I remember one time I was in boot camp. I wasn't sleeping. I was literally like, I mean, this might have been 2 different times. One of the time, yeah, I think I went to tie my boots or something, and I just didn't fucking do it. I was like about to, and then we like moved. I was like behind on something, so I'm like grabbing my shit, and we're just moving, and my boots were untied, but they were like tight enough that it didn't matter. And I was like, I'll just tie these motherfuckers later. And so we did this whole fucking thing, and then out of nowhere, one of them notices that my boots were untied, and he was like, "This fucking guy got his boots untied." And he brings me up on this spinning platform, and they just start spinning me. He's like, "I guess we don't just tie our boots." And I'm literally like, this is like, we're like 2.5 months in at this point. I'm literally just like, I fucking hate this place. Like before, literally before, I would have been like so terrified. I would have been like, I'm so sorry. I was literally just like so pissed off that I was still there. I'm just like, They're spitting me. Because like, so when one starts yelling at you, it's like a cue for all the other ones to swarm you and start yelling at you. So I'm no joke. They're spinning me on this giant thing in front of like all the Marines. And I'm just like, this guy just has to tie his boots, huh? It's like, I fuck you. I was like, I can't wait to escape this bitch. But yeah, anyway, it happens to us all. But yeah, it's that same idea of just like using ridicule. I can't remember how we got onto that. How did we get onto that? Oh, we were talking about I can't.
It's like outside people's views of you and how they perceive you.
Right.
And so yeah, that can drive you to like want to change yourself or be embarrassed or like hide things about yourself. Or yeah, same thing with like how we said like your interests. You can try to like change them based on who you're around.
Yeah, and you know, I really, that can be seen as like a bad thing, you know, but it's like a very important idea because obviously no one wants to be ridiculed or shamed, but how else do you get motivated to do something? There's like so many things. There's so many things where the only reason I do them is because I don't want to be the shithead that didn't do it. You know, it's like just for the sake of don't be the guy. That's like the thing that they say, like, don't be the one. There's always one. Don't be the one. That's what they'd say. It's like there's always somebody that didn't do what they're supposed to do. And it's like, is that going to be you today? Who's it going to be? Because one of you motherfuckers is doing something that you weren't supposed to do. And so it's like the ditty in your head, like, don't be the one. Fix it, whatever it is. And you're always like looking around. And, but yeah, just that idea of like, I don't want to be the one. So I'm going to do this one thing that is for most people just to overlook. It's like not important. But if other people are relying on you, it is important.
Fine tuning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know sometimes people will ask me something and then you just make up a white lie because you don't want to have to deal with their judgment. It's like people ask me all the time, oh, did you train jiu-jitsu today? And I'll just be like, yeah, even though I didn't, because I just don't want to have the conversation of like, oh, why didn't you go? And it's like, I don't really need their opinion of why I didn't go. So it's just like, yeah, dude, I went. Oh, nice. And then that's the end of the conversation. And instead of being like, oh, why didn't you go? Oh, well, how many times do you go a week? Or, yeah, it's like, I don't need your influence, guy. I know what I need to do and I know if I'm doing it, like, you know. So sometimes I'd be making stuff up, but it's not in anyone's harm or anything like that. It's just because I saved myself the embarrassment.
Yeah,
it's like, it's fine. It's like, trust me, I shame myself enough. I don't have to deal with your shame too. It's fine.
Yeah, or we see that a lot when we're like dieting and stuff, and it's like, is it? Oh, that's so healthy. And so you literally just want to grab him and throw him and hit him in the head with it.
Is that on your diet? You're like, listen here, you little motherfucker.
Like, well, now that you asked me, it's like, let's break down what you're eating, you bitch. Snap. But yeah, you know, the thing about like work, like in like regular work, you can't shame anybody.
Yeah, it's not
Managers
socially
try
acceptable.
But you can't like shame
openly.
Yeah.
Because they have HR and all this stuff. Yeah, no, if it was allowed, things would be different for sure. You see a lot of things that it's like they have to let slide, but shouldn't be let slid. Right. If that makes sense. So you see things and you're like, I know this is not the way it's supposed to be, but if the managers aren't making the decision, like, what is my opinion going to do? You know, they already know. They're aware of these things, but they literally have no power to change them because people and their feelings. And nowadays, it's like the cancel culture and stuff.
Well, so, and then there's two sides to that, right? So there's this like thing of you're not allowed to really like peer pressure people or shame them in order to get them to do the right thing. But also because they're not forced, that is also their own motivation to do whatever it is that they're supposed to do. It's like, dude, no one forced you to be here. Do whatever it is that you came to do. And the military is like, you literally are being forced. So you can't use that excuse, being like, you know, like there's no motivation. You have to like figure out a different way. And then it's that same aspect where you say like people are aware and they just don't give a fuck because there's nothing that they don't know the way to get that person to do what it is they need to do. Same thing happens in the military where it's like a good way to get like the most basic out of the minimum people. But then the people below that, it's like the same thing happens where you just can't do anything with them because they can't quit. You know, whereas like someone else, you can literally just fire them or make them quit. you can't do that in the military. It's like, no, you're stuck with this person. And then if you do the shame thing, that's like a way that, it can't help solve things, but they can also make things where it's just like even more likely that people just ignore it. Because now imagine like you had some person that was just no hope for them. Like they just literally either not capable of doing what's asked of them, or they refuse to for whatever reason. There can be a bunch of different reasons, but now it's just like, fix your battle buddy. Figure it out. This is y'all's team. Figure it out. Fix it amongst yourselves. Because if I had to fix it, all of you are paying. And then now this dude who has nothing to do with you is now everything to do with you. Now you have to babysit this person. Mm-hmm. And it's like, now imagine like you have to babysit people at your work, right? Well, now imagine you got to babysit this person where they live. Like you have to babysit like you might have to live with this person, and you're in charge of making sure they clean their room, making sure that they're taking care of themselves, making sure that they're going to show up to work. Like at least, the babysitting that you got to do is only the work responsibility. Yeah. Yeah. And then, so it's like, yeah, you get this power of shame as long as they have like a certain level. Cause it like helps with like people like me who are like, dude, this is effing stupid. Why are we doing this? That's my brain. I'm just like, this is a stupid rule. Why are we doing this? But the way that you get someone like me to obey it is like, don't be the one that's going to get called out in front of everybody for not doing it. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be the one. I want to be the guy in the back that gets zero attention. So I will do whatever that is to make sure I don't get yelled at. That's how you fix that. But I have base level of like motivation. I care enough to not want to be that person. Some people don't care. Some people will literally purposely do the thing that you ask them to not do. They'll do it on purpose just because they like want to tell you that I don't care whatever it is that I'm being forced to do. I hate that I have to do it. So now I'm going to purposely mess it up.
Yeah. Cause chaos and disruption.
And it's like, those people become like a thing where it's just like, don't even say anything to them because then they'll troll you about it.
Yeah. It's worse to even bring it up because then they make it a bigger deal than it was. I work with people like that where it's like, if you call them out or if you like ask them why or anything, they literally will do something later in that day, same day, to mess with you on purpose. And you're like, why did this happen to me? And then you figure out it was them somehow. And you're like, of course, I should have known they would retaliate because I questioned their existence. Like, of course.
Yeah, for real.
No, literally we had this, there's this like freaking war going on between coworkers. And it's pretty funny if you like take yourself out of it and just like observe it. But there's like these two coworkers that just absolutely hate each other. And we have this really, really spicy, it's like extremely spicy pepper sauce that someone made out of the house. And someone brought it in and I don't know why it's still there, but it's like in case someone orders a really, really spicy drink, we'll use this. And only for certain cases because it's so extremely spicy that most people can't tolerate it. And so we have this manager in training and he's working with us. And then there's the two people that don't like each other working with each other. And so the girl gets mad at the guy, ends up grabbing the fire tincture and is like, I'm going to put this in his water. So like puts it in a water that she suspects is his, but it's not his. It's actually the manager in training's water. And like he goes to take a sip of it. And at this moment, like the enemy number two, the man, he like suspected that she was doing something because she was all like, he, like all being like all weird about it. And he sees the manager in training go to drink the water. And she's like looking at him and she's like, stop him, stop. Make him stop. And she like goes over there and it's like this whole big thing, but it's like people going behind each other's back just to troll each other. Like, it's like, what is going on back here?
Yeah. That's so like, funny.
If they weren't paying attention, that guy would have drank that water and been like, what the fuck? But yeah. So it's like, if you're going to bring something up and the person's not willing to accept whatever you're saying, they can literally just make it worse on purpose.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That someone would be like, dude, they did this. Should I bring it up to them? I'm like, no, dude. That's what they do. Just like with us, the way that we deal with this is we ignore them and let them do that. But I'm like, all right, dude, I'm telling you. Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, dude, he won't listen to you. Trust me. We've all experienced this. But we just ignore them and just let them do it that way. And it just becomes one of those things. But it's totally funny.
Yeah, I've been at my job for a little while now, so I have people that have been there for less time, and they always ask me my opinion because I've been there longer. And they're like, "Well, don't you think we should try to change this?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"There's no hope, little buddy. I've been trying to change it since I got here. I've just accepted the fate." It's like, yes, we all agree that this should be changed, but unfortunately, it will not be changed.
Yeah.
It will precede us.
It's like so funny how witnessing that change of like people when they first start something as versus when they're a year, 2 years in, they're like this rugged, like not giving a fuck person. And it reminds me of that moment when we went to Colorado and they were like selling us on coming out there. And I remember we bumped into the 2 guys that lived there and we were like, I'm like, hey, you guys must love this place, right? I mean, if you guys are here, it must be cool. And they were just like stared at us. And then y'all were walking away and I was just staring. There's like this weird awkward moment where we're just both staring at each other. And I was like, I just kept walking. And then after we move out there and we're there for a while, and we're like, I understand why they just did not care. It's just like, it seems great until you're in it. And then all your enthusiasm is gone. And, one of my favorite moments that makes me laugh is when we worked at a Union Kitchen. And one of the managers is in the bev station. So it's like this little private area where we make drinks and it's mostly for the servers. It's like our little area to like catch a breath for a second. Office yet. So he's over here trolling us in the bev station. And he's like, it's like this every Friday, Saturday. He's like, this is insane. And I was like, I'm literally just like,
You haven't even seen a Sunday brunch.
Yeah, you effer. And it's like, I'm doing. It's like I've been doing this all week for months, and this bro's on his first week, and he's like, no,
I can't.
I'm changing things, and I'm literally like, good luck with that, buddy. And I literally just walked away. I was like, don't even try, dude.
We all had the same experience. It's like, oh, when I'm here, I'm definitely going to make things different. And then you literally try so hard that you just realize it's never going to happen.
It's like at that point, what you learn is that just fight for your own little bubble. Like whatever makes you happy that can get you through that shift, that's what you do. We ain't fighting for nobody else because no one gives a fuck. You're like, because this is what happens. Let's say you try to like make change happen. In order to do that, you need the majority vote. The problem with majority vote is that everyone feels one way behind doors, and then everyone feels a different way in front of the doors. And so you can't even really enact change because no one's willing to make a change if the change doesn't happen. If you want a change to happen, you have to be like, no, this is what we want to happen. There's no other choice. Otherwise, we won't fucking show up tomorrow. That's how you make change happen. It's like, you let them know. It's like, no, this is not acceptable. We know that y'all can fix it. We're not continuing until it's fixed. That's how you enact change. And everyone's like, yeah, no, you right, dog. You right. You know what? Yeah. You know, I was going to the other place anyway. So might as well. You know, that's what the vibe they'll give you. Like, they're like, I don't even care about this job, dog. I'm already getting paid from all this other shit. He's like, yeah, dude, tell him. And then you say something and like, right, guys. Everyone's like,
I don't even know that guy.
Yeah. Everyone's, and it's like, we ain't coming tomorrow unless it's fixed. And everyone's like,
I didn't say that. I'll be here at 9.
Yeah. Like, I need this job, brother. It's like, and it's just like that with everything, it's like, and I get it. It's like, yeah, I mean, none of us are probably in a position to quit or we wouldn't be here. Right. And so, and they know that. And so they're just like, that's just the way it is, guys. And then we realize it's like, it's not even worth getting upset over. Like there would be moments where I would say something in the meeting and I'd be like, dude, what is it that you're trying to tell me? Are you trying to tell me that if I do this and this, I also have to do this? And then they're like, whoa, well, and it's like, well, let's not get too angsty. Now, all I'm saying is, they try to, and then they'll pull you aside afterwards and they'll be like, I hear what you're saying. And so what we're going to do is It's like, but if you could just work with me a little bit, and then you think, and they kind of like just talk you down, and they're like, yeah, let us do this, and then maybe we'll talk about that, and then next thing you know, it's like that never, whatever they said was just to get you to quiet down for the moment, not rile everyone all up, and everything just goes back to the same. And then you're like, hey, well, what about? And you're like, oh, they're like we'll talk about it or something like that. Essentially, it's like something that's never going to happen, and you just realize that, oh, it really is never going to happen. And the more I get all worked up about it is only hurting myself and makes me seem like the crazy one, because then the next thing you know, you're at every meeting where you're like, this is some bullshit, throwing shit in the air. You got freaking like the server leads, and they're like, these servers are getting cut. These servers are getting cut, and they're not helping me do the things that I got to do. And I'm like, okay, so it's not enough that I check out with the bartender and the manager. Now, because this person has too many tables that they wanted by cutting us, I have to stick around longer to make sure they have everything that they need so they can make more money while keeping me here, not making any money. Now I need 3 signatures before I go home. The whole point of being cut early is so that I can leave early, not be here for 2 more hours doing what this bitch wants me to do because she's got 10 more tables that she literally cut me because she wanted. It's like, yo, if she can't take the tables and I get back on and I get those tables. If I'm not getting those tables and I'm getting off, I'm getting off. I'm not going to sit here and make sure that she has everything she needs. That doesn't make any sense. I shouldn't even have to check out with a bartender. If I'm cut in the middle of the day and the restaurant's empty, I shouldn't be here for an hour doing side work and waiting on people to fucking sign me off. And it's like, I have that one, and then, and it's like, you have this one thing and nothing, and then they're like, oh no, we hear you. Blah, 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 blah. And then it's just like, your heart's racing and you're like, you got nothing out of it. They just worked you up for no reason, and they're still going to enact that change, and it'll be something that you have to deal with. It's just like, and now when they're saying shit in the meetings, you're just like
everybody else. Yeah. Just zone out. All right. Say what you're saying, guy.
Yeah. Snap. Was there anything else you wanted to add on this movie? Yeah, it was a great movie. It was funny. We liked it. Like I said, I think you're a mixture of anxiety and sadness. You're like the two put together. And I'm anger and embarrassment.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Just their builds.
I agree with yours.
I feel like I don't feel embarrassment too much. Oh, I guess, I mean, we all feel it, but.
I feel like you provoke embarrassment.
Oh. I'm embarrassed. But all right, guys. We appreciate y'all tuning in. I hope if y'all liked the movie and y'all saw it, let us know what you think. If there was anything that you noticed in the movie that you would like to see us talk about or something cool that you thought. And again, if there's a movie out there you want us to see us break down, we'd love to hear it. We have plans to go on to Dune and a couple other movies, but I would love to work in y'all's ideas, and we appreciate y'all for tuning in.